Modern technology can finally reach what the Mississippi River tried to hide. 37 feet beneath an Arkansas soybean field lies the wreckage of the SS Sultana, a name almost no American recognizes. April 27, 1865. More people died than on the Titanic. Yet this disaster vanished from history. These weren't victims of fate. They were victims of greed. What new evidence reveals isn't just how they died. It's why history worked so hard to bury them. 1,960 Union soldiers were finally going home. They'd survived Andersonville and Cahaba, Confederate prison camps where 13,000 others died from starvation, disease, and exposure. They were human skeletons. Liberators described them exactly that way. They'd survived hell for one reason: this moment. The journey home to Ohio, Illinois, Indiana, Tennessee. While the nation mourned Lincoln's assassination, while newspapers screamed about John Wilkes Booth, 1,800 men burned and drowned in the Mississippi. Their families got letters, brief, cold. Your son died in a boiler explosion. No investigation, no justice, no memorial. This wasn't a tragic accident. It was criminal negligence, systemic corruption, and deliberate historical amnesia. These men were sold for $5 each. Here's where the story takes a turn. How does a steamboat legally rated for 376 passengers end up carrying 2,137 people? Nearly 6 times capacity. The SS Sultana, 260 feet long, built in 1863. Captain James Cass Mason desperately needed money. At Vicksburg, Mississippi, Captain Reuben Hatch and Captain George Williams saw opportunity. The U.S. government would pay $5 per enlisted man, $10 per officer to transport released prisoners north. Do the mathematics. 1,960 prisoners times $5 equals $9,800. Worth roughly $300,000 today. Split that money among multiple boats? Unacceptable. Captain Williams, fearing his colleagues were taking bribes to use other vessels, ordered every single prisoner onto the Sultana. Officers protested. Williams refused. Mason accepted. This wasn't poor judgment. This was premeditated. These men weren't passengers. They were cargo. Human beings reduced to a per-head fee, crammed into a vessel already struggling with mechanical failure. But here's where it gets complicated. On April 23, 1865, the Sultana limped into Vicksburg with a leaking boiler. A proper repair would take 3 days. Mason couldn't wait. He ordered a patch, a temporary fix that any competent engineer knew wouldn't hold under pressure. Modern forensic analysis by Hartford Steam Boiler Inspection and Insurance Company identified 3 catastrophic factors. This company came into existence in 1866 because of this disaster. First, the boiler material. Charcoal hammered. Number 1 iron becomes brittle with repeated heating and cooling cycles. After 2 years of continuous service, the Sultana's boilers were fatigued metal waiting to fail. This material was banned after 1879. Second, the fuel source. Mississippi River water at flood stage carried massive sediment loads. That sediment settled between 24 horizontal flues packed inside 48-inch diameter boilers, creating hot pockets that accelerated metal fatigue. Third, operational conditions. Low water levels created more hot spots. The surviving boiler showed internal scorching, clear evidence of operation with insufficient water. And get this wasn't one failure. This was a cascade. The patch job at Vicksburg didn't fix anything. Every mile upriver increased the pressure, the overloaded vessel, the flood stage current, the stressed boilers running hot and dry. Engineering suicide. The chief engineer had warned about the boilers days before departure. Ignored. The boilermaker in Vicksburg recommended replacing 2 sheets entirely. Overruled. Mason chose profit over physics. What makes this particularly horrifying is what happened next. At approximately 2 a.m. on April 27, 1865, 7 miles north of Memphis, 3 of the Sultana's 4 boilers exploded in rapid sequence. The explosion originated from the top rear of the boilers. The angle, 45 degrees upward. The force tore a 25 to 30-foot hole through the center of the vessel, ripped through the crowded decks, and completely destroyed the pilot house. Without a pilot, the Sultana became a drifting inferno. The twin smokestacks collapsed. The starboard stack fell backward into the blast hole. The port stack fell forward onto the hurricane deck, crushing sleeping men beneath tons of metal. The blast pattern proves critical facts. First, it rules out sabotage. A coal torpedo would have blown downward, not upward from the top. Second, it confirms superheated steam under excessive pressure finding the weakest point in fatigued, brittle metal. Witnesses reported the sequence. 1 boiler, split-second pause, 2 more in rapid succession. The sound carried for miles. The sky above the river lit up orange. The explosion came first, then fire, then the desperate mathematics of survival. Jump into ice-cold floodwaters in a weakened condition, or burn alive. 2 a.m. Most were sleeping. Skeletal men who'd survived Andersonville, who were finally going home, blown apart or burned alive or thrown into the Mississippi in darkness. The real kicker is what the river did to them. The Mississippi, in late April 1865, ran at flood stage. 3 miles wide in places, the current fast and violent, the water temperature near freezing from snowmelt runoff. Survivors described clinging to wreckage, to semi-submerged trees, to other human beings. Whole groups drowned together when weakened men grabbed each other and sank. Bodies floated past Memphis for hours. Bodies were found months later, hundreds of miles downstream. The steamboat Bostona arrived 30 minutes after the explosion and rescued approximately 150 people. Memphis sent rescue boats. By 7 a.m., the Sultana had burned to the waterline and sank near Marion, Arkansas. Of 2,137 people aboard, approximately 600 to 800 survived the initial disaster. 300 more died in Memphis hospitals from burns and exposure. These men couldn't swim. Prison camps had left them emaciated, weakened, sick. The same conditions that made them pack so densely onto the Sultana killed them in the water. Bodies that sank were buried in silt. The Mississippi changed course, leaving the wreckage under an Arkansas soybean field, 32 to 37 feet down, 2 miles from the current riverbank. Confederate soldiers, men who weeks earlier would have shot these Union troops, risked their lives to save them. Franklin H. Barton of the 23rd Arkansas Cavalry used his hidden canoe to pull Union soldiers from the river. Imagine, you survived the explosion, survived the fire. You're in the water. You can't swim. The current is pulling you. You grab another man. He grabs you. You both sink. 1,800 times. Bottom line, the worst maritime disaster in American history killed more people than the Titanic. So why have fewer than 1% of Americans ever heard of the SS Sultana? April 14th, 1865, President Lincoln shot. April 26th, John Wilkes Booth killed. April 27th, SS Sultana explodes. The newspapers had already chosen their story. Within days, the government launched an inquiry. The findings: faulty boilers, too much steam pressure, insufficient water. Blame: dead Captain Mason. Convenient. January 1866. Captain Frederick Speed tried for overloading the Sultana. No conviction. Captain Reuben Hatch, architect of the bribery scheme, never charged. Captain George Williams, never charged. The government had every incentive to bury this. A proper investigation would expose systematic corruption in the prisoner transport system. It would reveal that the U.S. Army sold these men for $5 each to a vessel that was mechanically unsound and criminally overloaded. Memphis ran out of coffins. Bodies were laid on the levee under blankets. Families received letters. Your son, your husband died in a boiler explosion. No details. No memorial. 1882. Memphis attorney Jerry O. Potter located the buried remains beneath a soybean field. Charred deck planks, boiler fragments, furnace bricks, physical proof of what history tried to erase. 2015. Small Sultana Disaster Museum opens in Marion. 2019. Arkansas designates April 27th as Sultana Remembrance Day. Compare this to the Titanic. Museums, films, international memorials, household name. The Sultana killed more people. You've never heard of it. This wasn't passive forgetting. This was active suppression. Families searched for answers for decades. Survivors formed associations in the 1880s, trying to ensure the story wouldn't die with them. Their descendants still meet, still fighting to tell the truth about men who were sold, killed by greed, and erased by embarrassment. Here's where everything converges. The single most damning piece of evidence isn't what the boilers did. It's what the records prove about what people knew. Captain Mason knew the boilers needed replacement. The chief engineer told him. The Vicksburg boilermaker told him. He chose speed over safety because delay meant losing the money. Captain Williams knew the Sultana was overloaded to catastrophic levels. Officers protested. He ordered them aboard anyway, because splitting the prisoners meant splitting the profit. The government knew. They set the per-head price that incentivized this exact behavior. $5 per soldier. Do the math. Choose the money. 1,800 men die. This is why the evidence is terrifying. Not because of what happened. Explosions happen. Boats sink. But because of what it proves. Every single death was preventable. Every decision was made with full knowledge of the risk. They knew. They chose profit. They killed 1,800 men. Then they buried the truth. The Sultana isn't a tragedy. It's a crime scene that history tried to hide. The wreckage sits 32 to 37 feet beneath an Arkansas soybean field, 2 miles from where the Mississippi flows today. The river moved. The evidence stayed. The Hartford Steam Boiler Inspection and Insurance Company, founded in 1866 because of this disaster, helped create the safety standards that prevent these failures today. The ASME boiler and pressure vessel code emerged from lessons written in 1,800 bodies. But here's what remains, unanswered. How many other disasters has history conveniently forgotten? How many other crimes were buried under more convenient headlines? The Sultana teaches us that historical erasure isn't passive, it's a choice. Someone decides what gets remembered. Those 1,800 men, survivors of Andersonville, survivors of Cahaba, survivors of a brutal war, deserved better than $5 and a hidden grave. They deserved better than a century and a half of national amnesia. The evidence is there. It's always been there, beneath the soil, in the archives, in the pattern of decisions that chose money over lives. What else is out there, hidden not by the ocean's depth, but by human shame. Should there be a national memorial for the Sultana victims? What forgotten disasters deserve recognition? Share your thoughts below. Like, subscribe, and suggest topics you want us to investigate. History isn't just what we remember. It's what we choose to uncover. We choose to uncover. We choose to